it's Natalie here from the Parentmedic movement, and I want to have a brief chat to you about choking. When parents book into our baby and child first aid sessions, one of their biggest fears is introduction of food and what do I do if my baby's choking. When we're talking about choking, there's two things that you need to think about, and one is a partial obstruction and the second is full obstruction. Your partial obstruction is pretty self-explanatory. It means when there's food in your airway and it's obstructing, but it's only partial, meaning that there's still some oxygen coming through. When your child has a partial obstruction, it's our body's natural reaction to try and remove it by coughing. So you'll see your child sitting there and they will start coughing and coughing and coughing. What I most commonly see then is the parents suddenly freak out, which I would too, and it's completely normal. But they jump straight to what we know as back slaps. So if their baby was coughing away, they'd quickly grab them and try and remove that obstruction. Now, the one thing about that is coughing is a really natural defense mechanism of our body to try and remove that obstruction. Now, I just want to picture you choking for a minute. I want you to picture that you're sitting at the dinner table and you get a partial obstruction. Automatically, you're most likely going to stand up and brace yourself and you're going to start coughing to try and remove that obstruction. Now, I want you to imagine someone coming up to you and slapping you on the back and throwing you over their knee. You're most likely going to tell them to go away. Because what's happening now is you're trying to focus so much on getting rid of that obstruction and someone else is getting involved. So the same thing is happening with your baby. If your baby has a partial obstruction and they start coughing, they'll go bright red in the face, it's not your time to jump in yet. I want you to understand that this process is actually very successful in removing the obstruction. So if your baby was in a high chair and they started choking and they started coughing, this is not the time to do back slaps. The most current recommendations is to do nothing at all, which can be really scary for parents to understand. But your job right now is support your child and to observe. Another thing that's really important to understand is, yes, you will naturally freak out. But from your baby's point of view, they need you to be calm. The more stress the baby gets, the more tight that obstruction will get and the more difficult it'll be to remove that obstruction. One of the things that you can do, if your baby was in a high chair and started choking and started coughing, is you could still put them over your knee. As an adult, if you were choking, you would naturally brace yourself and lean over. Your baby can't move themselves around yet, so you could possibly just pop them over your knee, support them like so, and put them in a better position to remove the obstruction. But you don't want to be doing any back slaps and you just want to observe them. If it's a partial obstruction, they're most likely going to be really bright red in their face, they're going to be really tense, and they're going to be coughing a lot. How can you tell if it turns into a full obstruction? Now, a full obstruction is an emergency and you must call emergency services straight away. And the thing to keep in mind, if it's a partial obstruction, it can turn into a full obstruction. And that's why observation is absolute key. If it's a partial obstruction and you're concerned and your baby is starting to get tired and lethargic and unable to remove it, you can still call emergency services for help. So with a partial obstruction, we've identified that they're going to be red and they're going to be coughing and they're going to be tense trying to remove it. What a full obstruction means, it's this complete obstruction. There is no oxygen getting to your baby. And what will happen is they won't be red in the face anymore. They'll most likely go white and they'll start turning blue. They'll also unlikely be coughing or tense and moving around. They'll start getting lethargic and floppy. The first aid for a full obstruction is 5 back slaps, then 5 chest thrusts, and making sure that you call emergency services to give you assistance. I'm going to demonstrate to you the 5 back slaps and the 5 chest thrusts now. So all you need to do with your baby is making sure that you always support them, not around their neck, around their chin, and you're going to pop them over your knee. There are different positions that you can do this in, but the main thing is making sure that they're comfortable and supported and that they're on an angle so the gravity can help them remove that obstruction. Now, the one thing that I see with parents when they're practicing their back slaps is not doing it hard enough. The one thing that you need to understand is it is now an emergency. A partial obstruction is of concern, so you don't want to be physically giving them back slaps unnecessarily. But now we've recognised that my baby is having a full obstruction and getting no oxygen whatsoever. So when I do my back slaps, I want to do them as hard as possible. And most parents will then turn around and ask me, well, now I don't want to hurt my baby. Well, unfortunately, what we need to do now is get rid of this obstruction, because if they have no oxygen for a couple of minutes, you won't be doing back slaps, you'll be doing CPR. So how you do your back slap is in between the shoulder blades, and you're going to use your palm, the lower palm of your hand, and you're going to simply do a nice firm back slap, and you want to make sure it's firm. And you're going to look to see if it's removed. So you do 1, 2, look again, 3, 4, and 5. 99% of the time, back slaps will work if you've done them effectively and done them hard enough. If it has not worked, you want to turn your baby around, and you're going to do what we call chest thrusts. So it's in the middle of the chest using your 2 fingers, and you're just going to put pressure upwards to try and remove the obstruction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If that hasn't worked, you're going to then turn them around again and do 5 more back slaps. Now you're going to do this until help arrives. Make sure that you've called for help, and once help arrives, they'll be able to assist you further. That's it for choking. If you want to learn more about first aid for choking, please make sure that you do attend one of our baby and child first aid sessions. If you want to find out more information, you can go to www.parentmedic.co.